It's time to go to the atomic level. It's time to go.
Welcome to the Atomic Level, the show where we decode the matters of wealth, one insightful conversation at a time so that you can grow and protect your net worth and your net happiness. I'm J Snook, and today I'm joined by a new friend, Cyndi Coon, who's currently in New Mexico and is an applied futurist. We're going to learn all about what that means and her incredible background. Welcome to the show, Cyndi. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. Super happy to be here.
Yeah, well, serendipity is always at play, and we were just in Napa Valley together at the Advanced AI and Linux Foundation's Summit on Human Agency, the Human Authorized Summit. And we banged into each other, I think, early on in the day, and it was quite a mind bender. So you've been a lot of places since. I was like 2 weeks ago, might as well felt like 2 years ago. And I'm curious to get your takeaways, but also just level set everybody on kind of your background and you know why you were there, but also what you work on today versus what you've been working on in the past.
Oh, so many things. Okay. Well, to start, I was there because as an applied futurist, and we'll talk about what that means, I've been looking at artificial intelligence, the advent of generative AI since about 2017 at my threat casting lab that I co-created, and we can get into that. But my interest around AI is the human-centric piece. So everything you'll hear me talk about is humans, humans, humans. That's what I direct all of my practice towards. So those elements that we'll get into, just know the underlying is always, anything I'm thinking about is how does it affect the humans?
Right. Well, and that's pretty important stuff because an applied futurist, if I was to think about what I think that means, that is a human applied futurist, probably cares about what the future looks like for fellow humanity.
Yeah.
And in 2017 is when you started the threat casting lab. Talk to us a little bit more, just for context, like what is that? Who was the client base for that? And did that evolve out of prior work? And if so, what? Because I know we talked a little bit about your interesting background and through some of the shared networks we had at ASU and some other things, but just give us kind of the Dun and Bradstreet version of pre-threat casting lab and then post-threat casting lab, because I think that's a good context.
Yeah. Well, it is, because it all comes together to where you find me today. So my way back background, I was born and raised in Western Michigan, and I went to art school. So I'm trained as a creative. And then I moved out to the West in the 90s to get my master's at Arizona State University, specifically in an area called social practice. And social practice is an area of study and an area of work for creatives, excuse me, that you take an social issue, idea, concern, and you build a creative structure around it to elevate that concept into the cultural zeitgeist of what is this. So that, my first iteration was a manufacturing company. So for about a decade, I had a paper goods manufacturing company that rode just its beautiful course. And I did everything I wanted to do in that industry with that part of the business. And then I needed more cognitive challenges. So I pivoted to producing because my brain naturally thinks on really big scale. It's just how I came to be. So I started to do producing for human events where people were coming together to do interesting, thoughtful things. That morphed into, I started to be an experienced producer for the President Michael Crowe, president of ASU, who had me work on wild and wonderful adventures over about 14, 15 years where I was a contractor. So my main company, Laboratory 5, has always been the company leading. And then I'm hired as a really a producer for hire to not just realize events, but bring whole concepts to life. So things like my futures work began with an opportunity through Arizona State University with an organization called Future Arts Research, where we got to look at how does art affect justice? How does art affect architecture and housing? So big picture things like that. And then that led me to launch many labs, institutes, organizations, and centers. That became something that I worked with a lot of brilliant humans, scientists, poets, incredible humans who accidentally got a whole shit ton of money and then went, oh no, I'm a poet. Oh no, I'm this, scientist, I'm this humanities. I don't know how to actually stand up a business and run something. So because I had the creative background, because I have the mind of scale, and because I have a business brain, that is a great cacophony to work with folks who come into money and don't know how to stand anything up to be realized.
And the money that they were coming into, was this through grants? Was this through university research stuff, federal funding? Where did it come from in that instance?
Yeah, I mean, all of the above. So foundations give money that is intended to have institutes have dynamic centers to offer specific populations or specific type of learning or specific type of research. And so that could come from foundations. It could come from a variety of granting organizations, federal, state, local, county. I mean, the thing is, when you really are identified as the person who understands some lane uniquely that someone wants to have their own name on, their own stamp on, they're looking for who to fund, who to be the researcher, who to take this, who to gather that community. And so that became something that, because I am naturally community driven, all the pieces I could really understand. So then I launched the School for the Future of Innovation and Society for Arizona State University in Washington, D.C. And in that, I had a partner, Brian David Johnson, who is a futurist. And we had met earlier in, one thing to mention that I did for President Crowe was a event multiple years called Emerge, where artists and scientists and engineers reimagine the future. And that let us work on scale. We built projects out to the year 2045 on some of the occasions. And Brian David Johnson had just come in as a futurist in residence at Arizona State University. And we worked on this project together, launching this School for the Future. And after it wrapped, we had such a connection in our understanding around futures work, foresight practices, and creative practices that he had just left the Intel Corporation, where he developed threat casting as a methodology inside Intel, which is what built your smart TV. Mm-hmm. And then it was time to take threat casting out of an enterprise so that the federal government and the US military could use the method as they had learned about it. The method at that time of threat casting, which I'll tell you in a second what that is, was just internal spreadsheets, really figuring out around threats around future technology and enabling technology. So that's where it was born.
Okay.
And so I will pause there to say what an applied futurist and what threat casting is, to give context of why would we stand up a lab. So my work as an applied futurist looks like this. To break down futurist first, it is part social science, which means research, writing, interviews, analysis, and synthesis. That is what you're doing as a futurist. And it's a lot of data. And if you're a data nerd, it is dreamy because you swim in data like you can't believe how many things you get to work with. And then the other half of the futurist is the creative. So in order to be able to gaze into the future, even with the foresight tools available, you have to have access to your imagination and trust in your creative practice. When you put those two things together, the social science with the creative practice, you have a lens to be able to gaze into the future. And then the applied piece means I do stuff. So I'm not a think tank. I don't talky talk all the time. I actually take all of the data research that our team analyzes and we turn it into stuff. Now, what's important is the stuff we turn it into, we are the prototypers. We are we're the sketchers, we're the mock-ups, we're the script writers. We hand all of our work over to our neighbors who are the live world builders. They do if it's a script, they go and make a film. If it's a prototype, they go and make the product or the process or the service. So that is what is an applied futurist. Now, threat casting specifically, what we're doing is we are building things called effects-based models. And we are looking at how does something affect a human being. So I tell people as they're working with us that they're building a script. So the entire activity of it, we bring people together for exercises. They are on small build teams. They build these scripts because what they're actually doing is they're building a specific person that they get juicy with. Tell us all about that person. I want to know their dog. I want to know about their family. I want to know about their job. I want to know all about that person. Tell me everything you can think of. Build them. Then, if we're threat casting, the very next step you're going to take is you're going to create an adversary and you're going to make something really, really bad happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you just made this person that you really like because you had fun with it. Now I'm going to ask you to ruin their lives, but not a little bit. I'm going to ask you to destroy their world so severely that you are actually feeling bad because, one, it's an empathy hack. If I get you to care about that person, you're going to give me better data. Mm-hmm. It's what it is. So then what we're going to do is we're going to backcast together on how to, this is threat casting, disrupt, mitigate, or potentially recover from the disaster you created. And we're going to go back from whatever time you picked out in the future, say 10 years or 40 years, whatever you want to work with. We're going to come back to today, and we're going to figure out how to make sure that doesn't happen. And you're going to work really hard at it because you just built a person you care about. If we're future casting, which is the sister to threat casting, we're looking at how to enable opportunity on purpose. Mm-hmm. So instead of destroying the world, you're creating a unbelievable big opportunity. And then you're planning how to drive toward and enable it and then sustain it. So those are the two sisters, and often we merge them. So part of the work will have threat and opportunity. So we'll go through both. But with the threat casting, that was first. And so the first thing we did in 2017 was we stood up the threat casting lab at Arizona State University. And that allowed us to immediately begin doing government contracts. which we ran both through Arizona State University and ASU's Applied Research Enterprise, known as ASURE, where they do the classified work.
Mhm.
So we do both. We still have the lab at ASU. Our primary partner as far as government goes is Army Cyber Institute up at West Point. They have been with us from the beginning. They have run so many exercises, and they have produced a number of their own reports and additional outcomes. And they also have the most individuals who are trained in the field on how to do this.
So I have a interesting question, and again, for people that haven't heard of any of this before, or maybe haven't heard of ASU before,
Yeah.
Michael Crowe is well documented as building essentially what has won. I think at least there was a point when I was following it between 2015 and maybe 2022, there was a point where I think 3 years in a row, Arizona State was awarded by multiple different media outlets the most innovative university in the nation. Like billboards would be on the 101, and they would say, #1 innovation, right? ASU. And for all the marketing stuff aside, because that can mean different things, different people. From a business model standpoint for the university, what do you think drove or drives that? In other words, is that more relevant to the West Points of the world looking all the way across the country and going, that's where we're going to contract up for threat casting? They have this threat casting lab. Let's go do business with them. Let's go give them some of our classified work because they're the most innovative. Or is it more the marketing hook to go get me to put my kid there because I want my kid to be at a school that I think is on the bleeding edge? Or is it a blend of both from your perspective? I mean, obviously, Michael Crowe, I had the chance to meet him in 2017 briefly. His book had just come out. A book of mine came out with Travis Wright called Digital Sense. We were at a similar event, both speaking at it. I don't remember what it was. And so we had a quick exchange. And big fan of his. But just out of your curiosity, like what is relevant about that nomenclature? Or is it just a good way to kind of sell tuitions and keep your eyes focused on the real thing? Like, what's your perspective on that?
Here's what's important to know. ASU and the education arm is just one thing. That's just one thing. That's one teeny tiny minor thing, actually, that is ASU. And it's important to know that the ASU strong entity is actually 5 entities. So it's the education division you think of. Then there's ASURE, which does classified work. Then there's an office of, I can't think of the name of it, but it's when faculty have an idea, it's the office that helps them get stand-up businesses. Not tech transfer. It's not the Office of Technology Transfer, like is it? Yeah, but it has a specific name. So okay. That's its own freestanding entity. There's the foundation, of course, which is its own freestanding entity. There's a global international entity that does all, like if you show up in Kazakhstan at a university, it will look like ASU adjacent. It is a strong, powerful body that is putting ASU all over the world. Then there's the final entity, which is the real estate holding company. So, well, and then there's the athletic program, right? But that's not separate. So athletics is underneath the university education. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. That's not its own freestanding. Okay, gotcha. So the reason that ASU grew, and if you ever step foot in Phoenix, Tempe, Scottsdale, Mesa, Arizona, anywhere, you will see the ASU footprint. And part of that is the real estate holding company that made that decision because ASU couldn't have grown on its small footprint that it had in Tempe, the Far East Valley, and the West Valley. That was too contained. And so the initial of growing the downtown campus, and downtown had the arts, which was totally awesome, and it still does, but not much business or commerce other than the big bank entities and such. So to bring that life, you needed that real estate. And to maintain good people over here working at all your different enterprises, as well as the education one, you had to have opportunity. So having these other holding companies that they can feed into to continue to elevate their own practices is a really big part of, that's to answer that piece. But then I'll reference the innovation piece and say what's different about ASU, having been around specifically the president's office as a contractor those many years. What's different about ASU and why they win innovation and why people want to work with them and why people want to work there, and maybe not forever, because ASU is a landing place. You build, you grow, you create, and then you go off. You will see that with lots of people. It's not a place they're trying to hold you as a tenure or something. That's not the game. So the reason it all occurs is because there is almost absolute autonomy. And I do not think other universities could even begin to get their head around that, because I work with other universities, and the level of requirement at ASU, if you have the money, the resources, the staffing, you can almost do anything you want. There's very, very little barriers. There's not a, this is our culture. I mean, they're not going to let you do like horrible hate-filled things, but I mean, like, just in the world.
Yeah, right. In other words, it's the innovative culture is not a marketing tactic. It's actually in the DNA.
Yeah. And it's not about students. It's about the grown-ups who work there. It's about getting the world's most premier this, that, so that everybody around gains from that person while they're there. And the thing is, people don't stay at ASU forever. They come, they use it as their launching pad for growth, because they really can build things you couldn't build anywhere else. There are also so many facilities related to the ASU fingerprint everywhere. So if you want to do this, go to the LA campus. If you want to do this, go to the Washington, DC campus. If you want to do this, it's just, and the thing is, you are actually penalized at ASU if you don't break the silo. So when you go up for your review, if you demonstrate, what have you done this last year or 2 years or whenever you're doing your review? Oh, I only did things in this tower. They're going to let you know that's not going to apply. So with intention, it cultivates a body of people who want to crisscross, who want to be, I play a horn, but I really want to work with this scientist on this. Well, yes, you need to go do that. That's why innovative and crazy things happen, because there's an actual requirement that you reach way outside of where you're at. And even in the disciplines of degrees, the students can swing all over the place to fulfill.
Yeah, I had a very microcosmic, and I say that because it's an example, but it's a very small one. But I think it's meaningful to your conversation here. I've mentored for years, starting in Southern California, through a bunch of different startup, organizations, accelerators, things like Techstars, Founder Institute, some of the things people have heard of. Did that in Colorado. Colorado has an interesting and amazing ecosystem for other reasons. And then moved from there to Arizona. And so, looking for what's going on in the ecosystem and the innovation culture of Arizona, I kind of inserted into different things. And my first experience with ASU was I don't even remember how it happened. I think I basically, to your point, I think I went into Sky Song, which is the South Scottsdale campus.
Yeah.
And I met somebody and I did something. And then next thing you know, they're like, well, why don't you become an entrepreneur in residence for Sky Song? I think I was like, I'd love to come in and mentor any of the startup things that are coming through here. I was looking for deal flow, whatever it was. So then I became like an entrepreneur in residence at Arizona State University for like a year or two. I can't remember what it was. And usually that's like that kind of title that you just slap on your LinkedIn and it's like, oh, it looks cool, but it doesn't, like, there's no actual real meat on the bone. But I would sit at Sky Song and I would do office hours. I think that's how I started it. I just did office hours. And then through that, I met a person, I can't remember his name now. It's a great guy. And he had a thing called Hacks for Humanity.
Oh, yeah.
They know Hacks for Humanity.
Yeah, of course.
And what fascinated me about that and what I thought was interesting, this was before I kind of understood that this was in the DNA at a broader level. It was just kind of like, oh, I thought it was maybe just a professor or something that kind of had a neat idea and was executing it and didn't really care if it spread, right? But the thing that was unique about it was I'd done a lot of hackathons across Colorado and across other things over the years. But the one about in ASU was it was very intentionally designed as a cross-pollination.
Yeah.
And it was called Hacks for Humanity because it was basically, it was open to the entire university. And I don't even think you could compete as a team. You couldn't compete unless you had 3 different disciplines on your team. So you could have as few as 3 people, but if you had more than one coder, you couldn't qualify. You had to go get another person. And I remember I went down there because it was like over a weekend, like a lot of these things were, and pots are rolled out. People are just basically drinking Red Bull, eating pizza, and doing stuff for 3 days. And there was a mix of diverse humanity there that I had not seen. I mean, and not just ethnographic, but like demographic, age. I mean, there was women in their 40s, and there was students in their 1820s, and then there was people from art and creative, and then there was someone from the business school, and then there was a couple people from computer science, where you'd imagine. And the challenge was, again, like whatever the theme was, it varied by year, but the purpose of the whole thing was to bring and cross-pollinate these different disciplines into a team that had to solve a problem, whatever that problem was that they identified. So I thought it was cool. I did it for, I think I mentored there for 2 or 3 years, and then lost touch with them. But just a very microcosmic example of that autonomy being purpose-built. So let me ask you a threat casting question. Let's say that the persona isn't a person. Let's say it's higher education itself. So let's say I go embody this thing of what I think higher education is, why I love it, why it's important, what its future looks like over the next 10 years. And then I take the other side of that coin and I go, great, how am I going to ruin higher education's life? How am I going to make the Ivor Tower come down, the $50,000, $90,000 a year BS tuitions that lead to no jobs? How am I going to destroy that? Or how am I going to just lean on it because it's already kind of falling? If the threat cast was to take out higher education as we know it, because AI is now available to everybody with a mobile phone.
Yep.
Where does ASU stand in readiness to that compared to other university systems? And how does the threat casting model work if you looked at the concept of collegiate education in general and the value proposition?
So I'll give you a 2-part. First of all, I cannot speak to how ASU is prepared for that at all. I do not know. So I still have an appointment there at the Emergency Management Center for Homeland Security, which is in the downtown campus. So I have an appointment and I still do work. But in January 22, I stopped working for the president's office because I moved to New Mexico to stand up the Applied Futurist Lab. So I am currently not in the loop. So I honestly cannot speak to that.
And I right around that same time, January of 22, is when my kind of more hands-on experience with anything touching ASU. I guess if I was to guess, I would think, and I'm saying I'm guessing, and you don't have to respond to this or not, but if I was to guess, I would guess they're more prepared than other universities, but I guess in
say,
general, if we zoom out, what does the future of that look like from your perspective? If we zoom out and we make it not about ASU at all, just like, what do you think the future of that value exchange is across those 6 different divisions?
Totally. I mean, and the first thing I will say is, my friend Andrew Maynard, who is at ASU, who's an extraordinary human, he was, I think, the first or one of the very first when Gen AI came out to immediately stand up a class for students to understand it. And that's the kind of example of, like, he said, whoa, we need this now. And he did it, and there was no board saying, well, wait a minute, how do we feel about that? They just let him run, right? So that's kind of ASU that I know. I would say education as a whole, I mean, one thing, let's go all the way to elementary and say, you know, with the partnership with Khan Academy, with OpenAI, that's revolutionary. That's a place to watch right now. Khan Academy is the academy most schools use to get through a lot of curriculum. So now if they're going to be partnered with one of the biggest AI models that exist, and they already have governors built inside these student models, which say, you know, this is a student in class, don't give the answer, help with the work. So it's got governors built in. So that is a place to watch for sure. That is new news since that happened this past fall. So then if I look at higher ed, I'm going to say 2 things. One is, could we have AI educators to get us through some basic stuff we have to get through? Totally. How do I know that? Because I taught for many, many, many years, and I had TAs. Right? I wasn't doing all of the workload. I had graduate students who I know hated doing that work, right? I was a grad student who was a TA one day, you know, in the 90s. I hated it too. So that kind of monotonous work, I do believe we can start to build right inside our, you know, blackboards or whatever systems universities are using, where educators could get more help with AI. Now that's AI plus automation, you know, things like grading or reviewing or whatever their vibe is. So that's one lane. I do think there could be a lot of AI support for faculty and staff. Then here's what I really think about the future of higher ed. I think we will see in the next decade, I think we will see a massive transition, which looks like, one thing, thankfully, we are headed appropriately back into our vocational technical. Because, you know, as we look at the workforce over the next 10 years, those who will make all of the money and those who will, like, be fine are the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, like all the hands-on work. That is going to grow back to where it should be. When we kind of knocked it off, we had a great run going, and then the 80s hit and they said, send everyone to college. And, you know, we got to balance that back out because we need that. We're short all of that in the US, every bit of it. So and
the reality is that the threat model, to kind of tie it back to, again, the lens that you look through, threat and opportunity, right? 2 sides of the same coin. The threat model on humanoid robots at scale that aren't sent to Mars to go build that society because humans can't be sent there. You know, we need a couple billion humanoid robots to replace the plumbers and whatever. And we are a minimum 10 to 15 years from that, from a physical constraint standpoint, meaning the chips that are required, the materials, assume we have the technology to create the perfect set of hands that Elon's working on. If we had that today, we still don't have enough raw material and the ability to refine the raw materials needed to create a billion humanoid robots to mirror the workforce.
Have to be fixed. Who's fixing them? Who's fixing them? And
well, even when they start fixing themselves, again, there's a decade of gap between that taking your job. Whereas in knowledge work, your job is probably, as you know, it is probably gone inside the next 12 months. So there's not the same speed to replacement for the technical job or for that laborer job or for that electrician or that plumber. Even if humanoids were here, they're going to be sent to war, or they're going to be sent to Mars to go build society. They're not going to be replacing your local plumber tomorrow. So there's enough of a horizon of time, is my point, from a pure constraint standpoint, for those jobs to pan out and provide a nice living.
And that is making the assumption of a lot of city activity. The minute you enter rural society, that will not work.
Right.
For so many reasons. The threat set around rural America and ability to operate those things, I'm telling you, is virtually non-existent, which is why, things like auto repair hardly exists in rural communities anymore. People in rural communities are driving hours to get basic things like that. So that's the next wave. It's like you go, okay, well, maybe we could get those in all of the, big companies and even in the restaurants and cities and all that stuff. Every mile you trickle out, that just gets harder and harder to accomplish. So there's that. And then the other thing that we're headed towards, which is a glorious thing, as a futurist, I am a ridiculous optimist. Really, I am. And it's because I get to spend all this time thinking about the no good, very bad, terrible threats. And then I get to see how we're going to not have them happen.
Right.
And so I have all this information of what I know that doesn't occur. And so my optimism is big, very, very big because of that. So the other thing I see happening,
which is an interesting, it's actually a very interesting thing. I don't want to blow past that, because when I met you, we didn't talk at length about, this is the longest conversation we've had, and this is designed that way because we want to capture it in real time.
Yeah.
But energetically, when we ran into each other at the breakfast table or whatever and started the network, as it were, there was like this complete embodiment of that. I'll call it joy, or just kind of peace of mind. And so then to understand that you are the co-creator of a threat casting lab, that you spend your time working with classified clients like Department of War and DOE, and all the myriad of things that could go wrong, the grid coming down, and all the reasons why the threat casts for that have to be modeled out, and what that means for, the persona that I care about, like you said, to then not have it be like just positive thinking, like to have it be probably data driven. You can kind of look at risk and likelihood and probabilities and go, well, yeah, all that's possible, but probability, no, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Like, I think that's a big statement. Because a lot of people are not feeling that right now. I've had several interviews this last week with different guests, and this anxiety is real across the board, across family offices, across high net worth individuals, across lay people, across students, across boomers, across Gen Xers. Like, there is a permeating anxiety level that is not just because of the mobile web and social media and all the things that we already know have caused that, but like, that is genuinely, I think, at a pretty peak level. So it's nice to hear a futurist that spends their time looking inside of that say that by design or by nature, I'm an optimist, and here's why. I think that's a really powerful statement.
Yeah, and part two of that is, I absolutely, no matter what, firmly, fully believe in those pesky humans. At the labs, we say all the problems are caused by humans, because they are. They are. All the problems, if we were out, everything would run smooth. So we caused all the problems, but we are also the solution. we are the solution. And I so believe in the human capacity and the human spirit and human resiliency. And the other thing I'm saying to people right now as they look around and are like, no, there's literally fires everywhere. Yes, you are right. But what an epic human opportunity to live in this time and be someone who can be focused on the light, focused on the good, focused on the understanding that we get through shit. Yes, bad things are going to happen right now. Yep, there's no denying that. I don't pretend. I know all the truths, but in the end, we will still be here. We will, whatever happens, here's where I live. As people talk to me, because yes, as a futurist, the calls come in. Cyndi, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what do you think? First of all, I don't predict because that's for crystal balls and people who do those kind of things. I operate solely on data. So my data allows me to live as the following, which is, you can see the fires burning, I can see the fires burning. What I know is on the other side of the fires is mountains of ash, of shit that's burned down, because some of it needed to, because some of it didn't, and it's awful. There's everything. It's complex, right? It's terrible, and it's also gifts, and all of it is a mash. Nothing's black and white. It's literally gray ash swirling around. But you know where I live? I don't live at a place where I look at the fire. I also don't look at the ash. I'm completely on the other side. So that when the fire's done and then the winds come and the ash blows away, I'm there. I'm waiting for you. I'm building, I'm stable, I'm healthy, I'm positive, I'm an optimist, and I know what to do. And that is why I am not freaked out during this time, because I'm already on the other side of it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I remember years ago, I can't remember the year, but it was probably 12, 13 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood. We had some pretty devastating fires, whatever year it was, in Southern California, where I was living at the time. And they were like the ones where they're close enough to home where you're not worried. Like, we knew our house was going to be okay, but you knew people that were impacted by it. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was driving up the 15 North in San Diego, probably heading towards Temecula for some reason. I have no idea why. And maybe it was a week or two after they had finally settled down, after like a month, right? And looked on the side of the road, and there was these amazing blooms of just flowers I'd never seen before, right? And it was like, they were just never there. They were like yellow, pink, like they was just blooming. And it was because the ash and the wind, when it had blown, right, landed in a different place, and it had seeded these things. And so, Mother Nature is a very interesting thing. And I don't know if you've ever read Jason Lowery's thesis, or it turned into a book called Soft War. I'm not sure if that's familiar to you or not, but it's been well documented in the Bitcoin community. But he basically wrote a thesis, I think it was almost 2 years ago. It's called Soft War, and it's a fascinating read. But he related in the book, he related Bitcoin specifically as a power projection protocol. And his thesis was based on all nature is at war. And like, when we think of war, we think of bad things, right? Because war is brutal. But he analogized it right out of the gate to like just survival and pragmatism, right? In other words, like the hierarchy of the food chain states that every day animals wake up in Mother Nature and they try and survive. And that is their singular goal. Yep. Like, there is no other program running. It's eat or kill, right? And there's a hierarchy, and so they're always at war. But when we look at them, we're like, oh, look at the cute little lion, or look at the little baby elephant, or like we see the good in that. But the reality is their reality, if you were to ask them if they could articulate it, the reality is, I wake up, I'm at war. And there was a time where humans, 150 years ago, we faced it similarly. And now I find it fascinating. We watch these shows like Yellowstone and like Landman and like all these different shows that are like really kind of hit on that essence of survival, because for the last 100 years, we haven't had to survive. Like we wake up and everything is there. Like if we need something to eat, it's there. If we need, sex, it's there. And now we have a mobile phone, so we could just order it right from where we are and it shows up. And when you live in that world, you forget that like what it means to survive just changes. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about it through that lens, again, it reframes kind of that fire and ash thing, right? It's like we're this little microcosm, and really up until 150 years ago, we also every day might lose somebody that we care about because they might die on the side of the road going out west in a wagon, or like there was like real threat. They might get a weird gangrene thing because they ran through a thorn bush and something got in their bloodstream and there's no antibiotics. Like we're not that far from those days, but we are light years in our mind from them. And then when you look at a 541 million year history since the primordial ooze and Cambrian explosion and we became a thing, then 150 years is nothing, right? It's not even a speck of pepper. Right. So I find it interesting that we might learn and have the chance to figure out what being a human really is for the first time because of the machines. But I don't know that, but that's kind of my hope or my positive spin is I think it'll give us the chance to actually discover our humanity in new ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing that right now. And so I would add this, which is, I think what we're witnessing right now is also this more awareness of each person's sort of survival mechanism. Because, I would say I grew up in really serious poverty. And so my rearing is radically different than many other Americans, even because lots of people in America grew up middle class and never had to experience what that was like. As a woman, I have different survival that is totally different than a lot of people. I think people of color have dealt with survival things in totally different ways than we would ever understand. But what I think is unique right now is your reference to is we have the most information ever to even know our ancestors were on covered wagons, to even, and maybe even have that genealogy done for us. We have the most ease of convenience and of life. We have the most of everything that's ever been in history, right? Availability of food, even housing, and all of the things that would have been absolute survival, 150, 200 years ago. And then what I see is a lot of rudderless humans, because there isn't a lot of hunger or drive for life. We've created an environment where we told a lot of people, drive towards the money, and that's where the money is. And we're going to have to pivot that and say, you're going to have to drive towards something that's really real for you, and then the money will come, because the necessity for real authenticity right now is where the future is. And that's back to the machines. I think we see, in the influencer culture, that is going to die out in the next couple of years. It's not probable anymore because no one's going to know what's real. Is that my favorite influencer? Is that somebody taking her off? Like, I can't stand it anymore. Forget it. So I think
the noise level is already deafening and already kind of over the peak of insanity, and it will last longer than we'd probably care to admit, but it's it's the easiest thing to replace, and it's meaningless too, right? And there's been all that. I think what you're touching on there is that money isn't everything unless you don't have any.
Yeah, if you don't have any, then that's all you think about. Right.
So when you don't have any money, and you know this because you grew up that way, like when people say money isn't everything, it's like, well, that's true unless you don't have any. And then what you learn is once you have some, that's actually true, because regardless of whatever the number is, there's a point at a diminishing return of net happiness.
That's right.
And
that's where we find ourselves right now, because we all, I think for the most part, a lot of Americans, we really were able to level up. You know, I am not in the tax bracket I was raised in, and I was able to do that. And so now we come to, well, oh shit, the machines are going to take over all the, you know, jobs that should be taken over that humans probably shouldn't be doing. But then the machines are also going to radically alter that whole intellectual white collar space, or whatever we label it, right? So what happens to everybody? What's everybody going to do right now when, and again, take the money out, because the money's always there. Like the money you'll get wherever you're driven. But what are you going to do? Like, if there is going to be massive numbers of people who are displaced, that doesn't mean they're not going to have employment, but it does mean that which they did for so long is no longer necessary. And that's a hard thing to swallow for folks.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there's a, everybody's different. So I'll caveat that, because this is just kind of the way my brain works through some of these things. Doesn't mean it's going to resonate with everybody. But I think when we worry about redistributing wealth in the form of materialism, I'm not taking a side on whether or not that gap is a problem, because I think it's obvious that when you have a gap of income inequality, it creates problems in the fabric of society. I don't think that's a political statement, or that's just a reality of human nature and the animal inside of us. But focusing on, you know, ways and mechanisms to redistribute it kind of violates, I think, a major design principle, just the ebb and flow of the natural pendulum, right? Which is that humanity is pesky, and for every problem we create, we get to points where we collapse. We've done that twice that we know of. You know, if you've ever read E.O. Wilson or Rebecca Costa's work, there's numerous great things out there about that, because we invent more wrong decisions than right ones, i.e. complexity. And then we revert to simple because we have to, because there's a force mechanism that just goes, okay, you know, like none of us know how any of it works anymore. So boom, bye-bye. Yep. Well, now we've invented, the first time ever, we've invented this new non-human species that is built for complexity, right? It's built to understand it. It's built to create more of it. It's built to thrive in it. And we have to accept the fact that that's not how we're built. And what's on the other side of that equation, I think, is an actual piece that goes, okay, so being human means I'm not going to be the smartest species right now. Well, regardless of what someone's relationship is to creation, without making it a religious thing, like we didn't invent the universe. We didn't invent that. Like we're not, you know, like we're already not the most powerful, all-knowing beings. We just happen to be the ones in physical embodiment that we can point to and go, wow, we're really smart, or this or that. But the hierarchy of the universe is, even Earth is this, you know, nothing burger, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of an interesting exercise in humility, but also one where there's a liberation on the other side of it. If we can raise our awareness to that fact, and get, well, what could creation look like for me inside of that? What could I do, be, and have? Be, do, and have? And then who do I want to share that with? Because ultimately we are social creatures. And so this notion that I'm going to build my fortress in the middle of New Mexico, surround it with armed guards, and be happy is just not true, right? And yet at the same time, you know, living in a dangerous situation in a city that's falling apart, that can't feed itself, has no grid, right? That's not ideal either. Mm-hmm. So we're going to find some level of redefining what society is, and I think humans will still be here. And we've been here this long, and we shouldn't be. Yeah.
Well, let me say this. First of all, the machines are not sentient. So I hear your feelings, but do know we are not there yet. So they are not.
Okay, though we will be there, right?
There is hope for AGI, but we're not there today. So just to clarify, there is not a sentient being that has entered our space that is necessarily a new species. While I appreciate that, we're not quite there yet. So I just want to say that. Sure. And then I want to say this, which is, as the optimist, I know that a lot of people come to me with this feeling of it's so obvious that they could take over, right? So here's the thing. The machines plug in to power. So either you're plugging them into electricity or battery. We control that. Keep that in mind first. So what I'd love to have us start doing is talking less about the machines, the models, because AI is just the first one. I mean, we've got stuff to go that's also just on the horizon here when we start talking about quantum and things. So AI,
we haven't even talked about the quantum.
It's your trial run, okay? So AI is just our appetizer. So get ready and gear up. But instead of saying the machines or any, language around that, we need to stay squarely focused on the fact that humans are building these, humans are powering them, humans are the bias, humans are making the decision. So every time we get nervous or we look around or look over our shoulder of like, oh my God, the machines are coming, pause, see the machines as just material that has been created, and ask yourself, if I'm nervous about this, be it an AI model, be it a robot that looks like a human, pause and say, what's making me nervous? And who's on the other side? Because they're the nervous makers. So if you're looking at any kind of machine and you're starting, even if we hit to the point where we have, of course, the agents, the Claude bot, the Molt bot, the whole thing, we have it going, but there's still people behind that. So that's
I think in some ways these things are forces that actually balance out the totalitarian inclination and incentive structures that we have. Like for every fear around OpenClaw or what have you, it actually becomes a necessary leveler. For every fear around, are the big models too big because they make up, the bulk of the S&P 500, and so everybody's passively feeding their valuations because they don't want to lose their retirement, and it's creating more of the same, and Sam Altman and this and that are too big to fail. And yes, all those things are true. These are the incentive models we're left with from the last 40 years. They're not going to shake out overnight.
Right.
And 8 billion people's humanity or current state of life, no matter how poor or how enriched they may be, is built around that fiat money system that is on its last legs 112 years in or whatever it is, and is going to be replaced by something, but we don't know what that is yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the fourth turning cycle, right? All those things. And so we go, yeah, okay. So that's the leftover, right? That's what we're dealing with. That's this. But the incentives don't change overnight. And when they do change, they usually change because something new that didn't previously exist in our consciousness enables people to end run the old guard in a way that fundamentally disrupts the incentive model. And that's the beauty of these things, is as scary as they are and as out of control as they are, right? They're the very thing that we then go, the smart minds that know and are tired of it, they go build over there. And so when the talent leaves and the best and brightest that we have do go, forget the AI for a minute, when they do go to crypto, to Bitcoin rails, to whatever, it's not about whether that thing works or not in that first iteration or that 100th iteration. It's the fact that the best and brightest that we have now changed where they're putting their energy.
That's right.
And when they put their energy over here, and when they put their energy into human agency inside of a world where we may not be the smartest species in a decade, right? When they put their energy and effort over here and they lean into that, then usually, good things come of that. And
it's why too, I'm a advisor to women in Web3 because I am watching everything right now. And what I'm seeing is this exhaustion with the screen of not knowing what's real or true, with desire for in real life, analog, relational, met with the awakening around humanity that all of this data that is always been taken from them actually belongs to them. What I'm looking at is that data sovereignty that is headed our way. When, I don't know, is it next year? Is it 10 years? But it's coming, because when we have, exactly as you were stating, an exhaustion over here and people go and move towards projects that matter for humans, we will start to see these new mechanisms around owning your personal data that you can sell off pieces if you want to, and you make the money from it. That's the future. And the people who are playing in that game right now, they're going to win the future, because what they're going to do is they'll make money off the tool, but everybody will make money personally, and that's how we'll have income in the future.
So I want to throw this at you. This is something I'm working out in my head in real time, and it's the pragmatist, the realist, and the optimist and the futurist all fighting with themselves, right? So, so I'm curious as to your take on this, because I don't have an opinion. I have my thoughts around it and my feelings around it. So when I look at some of these natural kind of governors, right? These things that happen, whether they be in Mother Nature, they're fires sometimes. Things get out of whack, and then nature needs to burn itself down and reorganize itself. And that's what we call a flood or a fire or an earthquake. Yeah. And in business and in life and society, we have those things, and they're called market crashes, or they're called, social cultural movements, or they're called civil rights, or they're called whatever they're called, right? They happen. Arab Springs. And so, if I take that and I say, okay, where are we at right now? Higher educated. What do we need to learn? What skills do we not have? What is society going to move to? How are we going to get, 8 billion people on that train when we know that the majority of them don't do anything but get drug along into whatever's next, right? When it comes to AI, and you look at the Mag 7, for instance, right? You have this inertia of like, here's the model, here's the momentum capital model. We had free capital for so long. We have dry powder at length. We have 7.4 trillion sitting in money markets looking to earn something more than 4%, but where does it go? The hurdle rates are 11. Like, you have all these things and you go, man, I could really worry about Web 2 dynamics in the advertising industrial complex just getting beyond repair with AI, because now not only is everything fake and noisy, but it's manipulative beyond belief, and we lose elections, we lose all that. So that's the bad side, right? Then you go, yeah, but Apple didn't have a large language model. Apple didn't. Right. So you have the most valuable company in the world, off and on. I think NVIDIA is now higher, but whatever it was, Apple was at the time most valuable company in the world. And everybody's like, oh, they're losing the AI race. And then you see what happened in the last 60 days. And you go, no, actually, they're going to win in a different way.
That's right.
Right. Because they're going to sell the hardware that everyone who wants personal AI is going to need.
Bingo.
And so they sell out of Mac Minis, and then now they're launching M5 chips. Now, whether they lean into that fully or not, the point is Michael Dell's watching, Samsung's watching, like other people are watching. NVIDIA just announced Nemo Claw as we're recording this. And so they have their own hardware stuff. And so you look at it and you go, okay, so the cloud models are going to win on UX because the frontier models are going to say, look, 4.6 or 5.4 or whatever the model is, right, is better, faster than the other one by order of magnitude. And every week for the next year, they're going to release new. And for $20 a month or for free, someone's first exposure to AI will get them into the habit of giving intelligence to one of these things. And ultimately, they may end up in a world where they lease it back permanently because they fall into the habit and they give it to the model. And now they have to lease it back from the model. But just the very threat of that has people like myself, people like you going, yeah, but I could have personal AI and literally be 90% as strong as Claude's latest model, and I could have it on my own device and run it offline and locally, and all I need is a $400 computer on the low end, or I could buy the newest MacBook M5 and I could have like a lab in my freaking pocket and I could own it. And so as that happens, and then as women and men and different races and in different countries do that, you now have a stock that's performing again, Apple. So you get the same inertia going the other way towards personal AI at a level where maybe it's still only the minority, but it's enough of the minority to matter
at the beginning.
And then that becomes a scale point. And so, when I look out at that, I think I obviously resonate and lean into that. I've been an own your data guy for the last decade. I've taken lumps trying to fight that good fight. I've had
disappointing nights. I worry sometimes that it's an unwinnable war. I vacillate because I have kids, and I also think about myself, and I just don't want to feel like I don't have sovereignty. But I actually worry less about it sometimes too, because I see the incentive model shifting even in the last 60 days as it relates to Apple. And you go, well, if it's going to work for them, then other people are going to copy that. And so the pendulum could come back around, because there's no moat on the LLM side. And we've already discussed that, right?
Right. And the containers that are going to need to exist for people to manage their own data are a whole world. It's a whole oyster. What does that mean? It means everything different for every different person who's thinking about how to join in on this. And why this is going to end up happening is because there is so much anger. I mean, there was anger about, Google and your grocery store taking your data. But now that people really, really understand that the AI models are also going to be, eating themselves here if something isn't done, because they don't have any new data. And as people, just general people, start to understand, oh, wait a minute. And that awareness becomes more and more and more of the data eating of everything. People are going to start to hear about their cousin using this thing where they make money by locking up, it's going to roll like that, and it's going to be organic, and it's going to grow. But it is going to move to that, because it's going to have to also, because the large corporations cannot continue to just collect this data, and not from a personal point. It's just going to die. See, the thing is, you can't keep going on this rotation, because the people are onto you. So they're shutting you down. They're lying to you. They're not revealing everything. So it's not going to work indefinitely. It's just not. Human nature won't let it keep running that way. So there's going to have to be this new development of partnerships between large companies who need that data, who are going to have to start paying for it. And they're going to have to start paying for it because they're not going to have any customers to buy those apples, because nobody has any work. So they're going to start to do these things to say, I mean, they each are going to have to develop models for income coming into their companies, because they're not going to be able to rely on the standard disposable income. People are already, you already see it. People are only doing what they need to do. This isn't a temporary economy thing. This is a new evaluation of, what do I need for my own life, family, home? And it's going to come. It's just going to,
and I think people are prioritizing, people will prioritize their consumption a lot differently now, simply because of those pragmatism.
Period.
And that may be whether it's tuition, whether it's eating out, whether it's whatever. I don't think, again, everyone's going to apply it differently. What I do know is, people, if you took away their mobile phone, whatever they think of that, they would really struggle to deal with it today. But if you made them now, or when they first got it 15 years ago or 20 years ago, pay what it actually cost, they wouldn't have one.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, like if everyone that bought an iPhone paid $1,800 cash the day they got it, their kid wouldn't have it.
That's right.
And so business models had to adjust. People had to create loss leaders. People had to do the attract versus extract thing in the beginning. The same thing will happen with new hardware, with new things, because there's nobody that's going to be able to go, yeah, I have a family of 4, so I'm going to go drop $8,000 on phones. Like, nobody would do that. But that's what it actually costs. Like, that's what when you factor in the subsidies and the monthly and the whatever, right? That's what it actually costs.
Insurances and all the things. Yes.
Yeah, so, no one would have a $3,000 refrigerator if you had to buy that plus whatever. But when you finance it, when you change the economics around it, you made it where people could afford it or justify it. And I think more and more people are waking up to that, and the planned obsolescence and everything that's been designed into the current state. And they're just, they're making their own choices, but they're going to be more consciously consumptive, I think, in some regards. Some won't, but I think enough people will, where
again, they'll start to choose pragmatism, just like they chose college as a way out. They'll go, well, wait, I don't know if that makes it. Can I get the education through some other means? Can I get to an income right away? How universities adjust to that, how schools adjust to that will be interesting. But I mean, their business models have to change, right? Because we've even seen it in NCAA. Like, they finally let people monetize their name, image, and likeness, because what were they going to do? Tell an 18, 20-year-old kid that's bringing millions of dollars into that university, selling jerseys and playing on Saturdays, that they can't have a job? You know,
we threat casted that, by the way.
I'm sure you did. I couldn't have been happier when that happens. I think there's other, I had a conversation in Miami last February, actually, at FII with 3 different sports owners during this like little panel discussion. And it was fascinating. I said, at what point does the sports break, though? And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, like, I love baseball and I love certain sports, but I'm like, at some point when your valuation is 10, 15, $20 billion per team, and you're paying one player $1 billion, you're now managing an asset.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a fan, like, we love watching Messi score a goal on a broken ankle or whatever, or we love watching so-and-so throw 9 innings and, maybe play with a concussion. Like, that's what makes them not human to us, is that they're better than us. They're tougher than us. They're, they're doing something that's a little insane. But if that's $1 billion asset on your balance sheet, and you're paying $300 million a year for that asset, then all of a sudden 75 pitches is where you stop, and you don't care if it's a no-hitter or not. And what happens when that's a $2 billion asset? Like, is it 50 pitches now because I need to like it? And then what happens to the game? Because I'm doing this because I want to escape reality, right? And so it was interesting because we don't have an answer for that. And I said, what happens to college when all of a sudden, Shedeur Sanders is not an anomaly, he's the norm, and you have kids making 15, 20 million a year playing college football? Do they even have to go to class anymore? Is there even a point in calling them a student athlete? Let's just call it what it is, which is semi-pro or minor league for the NFL. And when does private equity start to buy up ASU's football team? And what happens? And so when we think about these threat casts that you've probably modeled out, it's like, more is not always better. More usually means something's going to change fundamentally.
Well, and you thinking about sports. I think a lot about sports data, just by the nature of, I am not a sports fan personally, but I am involved in a lot of sports things because a lot of data, and it's just, it's a swimmy space. And I think a lot about, in this Web3 owning your own data future, what does that mean for the 9-year-old on the Little League team? Does the 9-year-old parents then invest in the container to begin to collect that child's data so they own it? Because right now, if you have a kid on a Little League, are you even paying attention? Unless you're like an obsessed parent, but like, do you know your kid's stats on that?
But it's only a matter of time. And I don't think this is necessarily a good thing. I'm saying that because, like, I know people who have 7th and 8th grade kids who have gotten offers. I mean, one of my dearest friends has a very talented, wonderful young man who at 8th grade got recruited and given a $30,000 a year scholarship to play basketball in Orange County.
That's right.
There's only a matter of minutes before agents are starting to have to fish in the Little League pond.
For real.
Because if you don't catch the trust of that family, and I spoke at an actual a sports agent conference, at a family office conference. This is a weird thing. It's like 2 years ago. And I said, NIL. I was like, name, image, and likeness, and owning that container is your future. And this was 2 years ago.
Yep.
Everybody's like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, first of all, your deep fake threat is real if you model out 12 to 18 months. And nobody wants their daughter or their son ending up on a website doing something defamatory or worse. And you don't control that. And Instagram isn't your platform. They don't care about you. They don't, So it was fascinating because they kind of all understood it, but they didn't really get it, right? And name, image, and likeness is the asset that a human has. It is our sovereignty. It is the one thing that we call ours by birthright.
Right.
And whether we're trying to monetize it or not, to your point, right, we need to have a model for containing it.
That's right. And we currently do not.
And we do not. And yet the technology exists to do it. So it's not a matter of the technology not being there.
Who will be first to, And that's the thing. I think when a lot of people right now, there's a lot of excitement about, well, all the data is just there. We can build models. You can go get it. You can get it. The data is just there. It is not going to be there forever. The way that these companies swooped in and were able to just scrape everything because no one was looking, no one was paying attention, you know, and even the lawsuits that have come since are so minor compared to the scale of what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I mean, these billion-dollar fines are. So I'm curious about this. Have you seen the one? I have not seen any backlash yet, but it's not. I haven't looked either, so it's possible that there is. But 2 weeks ago, there was a report that Meta has granted a patent, essentially on people's ghosts, and like the ethical concerns around Facebook / Meta are too numerous to count. So I'm not a fan. I'll disclose I'm not a fan. But this one kind of breached. I can't believe it made it through the patent office, right? Which is a whole different thing. And essentially what it appears that the patent granted was, if you have a profile on one of Meta's platforms, so Facebook, whatever, and you pass away, Meta now has the patent to continue to post under that persona in perpetuity.
Wow.
And it was granted based on one of the lines that got called out in this report that I saw that was the ethical grotesqueness of it was, and actually this happened, I think, right after Napa. I think I saw this like 2 or 3 days after we were at Napa together, somewhere in the last 2 weeks. And so in the thing, it said, not because it's good for humans or not because it doesn't allow for the grieving process, but literally what they wrote in their application that got approved somehow was it creates a bad user experience, because I'm used to seeing Cyndi. And so if Cyndi's all of a sudden gone and she's no longer in my feed, it's a bad user experience for me because I'm reminded that Cyndi's gone. So Meta has now taken the ownership of, because you built your name, image, and likeness on your profile with one of our platforms, we own that. We're going to remind you that we own it by we're patenting your ghost. So even if you don't want that to persist, we now own the patent on that persona because it's our data. And we're going to continue to post using AI because we know what you would have posted.
That is
the sign of the end of that era, in my opinion.
Oh, and that is also a sign of exactly what I was trying to express of, it's not the Facebook, it's not the Meta, it's the people making the decision to do bad things. And what will happen is when you do that kind of stuff to humans that just feels so outside of what all of our agreements are, right? Like we have agreements around just even if it's like the most basic around death, dying, grieving. That is when you are so out of touch that you forgot that your core base. And here's the thing, that is what I'm seeing with the socials. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. People are heavy into it. But if you have one little thing take off that makes people feel like you're not going to be disgusting, when the boomers die, Facebook dies, and Instagram could come or go just like TikTok for people, and they will all move. And I think the arrogance of these tech bros who think they have everybody, they're going to see over the coming. Now, the ones I think who are not included are like the Bezos, because the data centers are what's winning there, and no one knows it, no one can see it. So even if Amazon disappeared, the actual Amazon, all of that would still exist because it's running everybody now. But right. When it comes to social, I do think that there's coming a point, and I don't think this is Pollyanna. This is, the data demonstrates that the people are coming to points of where things end up disappearing. We have lots of examples throughout human history where certain things seemed like everything, and now they just don't even exist.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the infrastructure of these things is real. And again, you're more data driven than I don't want to pretend to have full data on all this stuff because I don't. But I did write a piece about it on the newsletter about a year ago. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. There is an initiative that got launched, and it starts with a W. I'll find it, put it in the show notes. But it was by Meta, and it was essentially, and is, to my knowledge, I don't know the current status of it, but it was the largest undersea private cabling initiative, which basically is the pipes that data is going to flow through. And it was basically majority owned by Meta. And I thought, when I saw it, I thought, because again, I have my bias, so I'll disclose that I'm not a fan. But the genius is real. Sick and twisted or not, the genius is real, because I went, well, everything could evaporate, like all the front end apps, just like the university. That's what was interesting in the parallel. It's totally different, but the actual educational side of a university, right, is just like kind of the icing on top. It's not that it's not valuable. It's just like, if you really said, well, what makes the university valuable and why is it here to stay? It's the research stuff. It's all the other. It's the real estate holdings, right? It's the other things that actually drive the majority of the value. It's Amazon.com. Yeah, it's a great business. We all buy from it. But the reality is it loses money, and it always has. Right. They make 154% profit off of AWS, which runs everything, right? And your Netflix goes down if that gets shut off. So similarly, this notion was, how did they let this happen? If this thing goes 44,000 miles, I think it was, around the earth, in the South China Sea, through India, through whatever, and it was going to be owned basically in this private partnership that Meta was the majority of. Well, then you're talking about the data that flows to the LLMs, to us, to everything, is now, they've got a pinch point. They could shut it off. It's not even owned by a state government. Not that you should trust them, but in other words, it's not even owned by someone that supposedly is watching out for the human interest. It's a corporate asset. So, there is a lot of design based on these inevitabilities of when things run out on one of my utilities. It's not like they're hoping that Facebook lasts forever. It'll last longer than we think, but the reality is they're built for a weatherproof scenario on a lot of things. Back to the positive stuff. I think drawing the awareness and the ability for people to become aware faster than ever before. To your point about, we didn't even know horse and buggies existed until we were able to start to write things down, and then we can look back at history and we can learn from it. Well, now we have real-time analysis of, I mean, my friend and co-author stood up something. He's in Dubai, he's working and living in Dubai. So the missile started flying the other night, and I messaged him and said, hey, are you okay? Just checking on you. And he used his OpenClaw and some of his technology, and he built, because he's over there and he doesn't speak Arabic. And so he's like, all the news organizations and everything is in Arabic. And he's like, I can't make sense of what's going on. And using OpenClaw, he created a platform and a website called watchwar.live in 4 hours and open sourced exactly what's happening. So literally, a drone was hitting something, and you would see a bot or a news thing came in, and would translate it into English and would tell you what so and so said without the media spin. And he created it not just for himself, but and I thought, man, 4 hours before, that didn't exist. He knows a couple little things. He's not a coder, but now he doesn't have to be. He can be a designer, and he can figure out how to execute this stuff. And that's today, meaning that's the least empowered people are going to be. That's the worst the technology is going to be. That's the slowest it would take.
That's right.
And so for the last week and a half, watchwar.live's been running, and he spun that up in a condo room in Dubai. Right? So in many ways, these things that have never been available also give us the chance to draw awareness, exercise our free speech, and bring awareness to things that other people might not know. And then that shifts human behavior over time.
Period. Yeah. I mean, I think some of the best coders have come out. I know they've come out and said, with vibe coding now, if you had a basic code class, that's all you need. like getting an actual degree in coding is no longer necessary. And, you know, anyone can go and take Google's code classes, and then you only pay for them if you want to have that certificate or you want to work for them. So my 16-year-old has 4 Google Codes certificates, and she can do whatever, but vibe coding makes instant products usable a reality. That's something, vibe coding is something I do with a lot of people, exactly, who say, oh, if I just had well, let's go make it. It'll take us a couple hours. We'll make it. And it'll be great. And it'll be good enough. And then that'll be a prototype that you can mess with, get out all the kinks, and then build better. Next.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the opportunities back to the human side and the event side, and some of the stuff coming full circle as we wind it down, you know, to some of your earlier experience. Like I became convinced of the opinion, like the other day, on Saturday, I saw a tweet about something, and then it totally sparked, and I went, that's something I can do. That's something that can be of service, but also make, you know, essentially as much money as anyone would need, and yet doesn't add to the problem in a negative way, right? And so, okay, checks the 3 boxes for me. But the short version of it is it's humans building and doing things in public together.
Yep.
Because the noise level today, for those who haven't been watching it, the noise level is like, well, I don't know. Is it really like crazy? And then you get into it and you go, oh my gosh, like I can't keep up. If you're on X and you're like, if you type in OpenClaw, your brain's gonna explode, right? Like you're gonna basically see 15 iterations building on top of each other by tomorrow, and you're gonna go, where do I start? And more, and then the next day is gonna be even more. Where do I start? And then it's gonna be easier to start than ever, and you're still not gonna start. And I think that's the window, right? The window is human beings can have every tool at their disposal. It can be one click to install with more security, because it is now 6 weeks later, right? But people still wait because, again, I don't know. Am I going to do it right? Am I going to do it wrong? What do I do with it when it doesn't? But if you and me get together and we're sitting with 3 other people and someone has that concern, but then someone also did the leap, and then they're showing us what they're doing on their thing, and they're building whatever they're building, and I'm going, holy crap, that's on your computer? Yeah. And then now all of a sudden it's tangible to me. And then if someone's going, hey, by the way, I can help you, or, you know, whatever, pay me $99 and I'll put it on your computer for you, and you'll take that inertia away. It's like a month lost is an income, an annualized income.
That's right.
And, you know, and so I think the real opportunity now is humans basically doing what humans do, which is get together and start to build and trust in public.
Yeah.
Whatever it is they're working.
Yeah. One of my models that I have built is the applied, it's in the applied space, but it's experiential futures. And so it's all of these tools you can use for yourself and with others to engage in that experiential space. Because when we work together, when we collaborate, we go faster, we learn deeper. Our connections allow us to repeat, visit back to each other. And right now I teach prototyping workshops, and I have a book that just came out that's going to be a workshop starting March 30th. And that is the exact premise, is do not go do this on your own. It is silly. And I am deep in multiple AI communities that I spend a lot of time with humans. I mean, multiple sessions weekly, at least one a day. I have these very robust communities. Some of what I do is I go and, you know, maybe they're like office hours and we all sit and somebody's talking about something and we jam on that thing. Some of them are really intentional build sessions that are 2-4 hours. We have timers and then that tick off after 25 minutes. And then we got to report in like Pompadour timer, you know, how's the build? Some of them are these sessions called Learn Out Louds, LOLs, that are people sharing something they figured out. And so you go and you vibe in. And then I have a community I meet with every Thursday that we are not focusing on the tools. We came together because the truth of the overwhelming fire hose is so real. And it's not about the tools, it's about your practice. So the people I spend time with remind me why I'm doing anything I'm doing. We all can check in with each other and say, hey, is that within like your themes or within your, lane, whatever you should be focusing on? Keep everybody on track in a focused manner. But also having a community, I cannot recommend enough in this AI space. I have another group called Content Evolution that we build what we call collabs for organizations, where we go, hey, let's find out who in your organization has the penchant for AI, even if that's not their job. And then we bring them together, and now you have this cohort who mess around with the AI things, but they're not solely responsible. And they don't have to take the burden of, oh my God, now somebody's got to learn this whole thing. No, you do it as a collective. You do it as a community. And then you all have that same knowledge. I mean, my level of knowledge in the space it's massive because I hang out with the people, and I'm doing one thing in particular. So I invite them in. I usually do Monday afternoons, and I invite people in and I walk them through what I'm learning. And then I go to their sessions and they walk me through what they're learning. So I don't have to spend the time on all the learning.
Right.
You have a community. You get to spend time on just soaking it up without the hard part. You're going to do a hard part on something that you're interested in, and then you're going to go share it. That's the only way through this. There is no way as an individual human or even as an organization, you can take on the fire hose. Every day something new is coming out, and you're like, and every model is changing. So, you get cooking along with a particular model, like, oh yeah, I really love 5.0. And now all of a sudden it's 5.2, it's 5.4, it's 5.6. And you're like, I don't understand. This is different. Well, how are you going to figure that out all by yourself? Sure, trial and error, but we don't have time for that. So the best thing anyone can do right now when it comes to AI is do not go it alone. Either bring somebody in who has some expertise who can help your team like calm down. My real work in futures, in AI, in creative practice, everything, my real work is mindset. It is about human mindset so that you can feel like you can take on whatever it is. That's what's most important right now. Because if you try to get wrapped up in all this possibility around AI, you're going to sink. You're going to be so disgusted and overwhelmed. It's too much for the human mind.
Yeah. And I think that's a key thing is that, you go through any number of things where it affects all of us regardless of where we are in the learning curve.
That's right.
Because if you know what you think is a lot or a little, you realize how fast you can't keep up with what's coming at you. Mm-hmm. And yet you go, well, but I actually know quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And then you look around and you see someone who doesn't know anything, who basically thinks AI is still the Terminator, right? Which is the majority of the planet.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, what are they going to do? And then they go, well, I don't know anything and I'm not interested in it, so I'm going to put my head in the sand.
That's right.
And it's like, well, no, that's not an option for any of us. But if you normalize it, you go, the playing field's actually very level, because the more you know, it doesn't enable you anymore. If you're not doing it in community, if you're not unlocking that special lever point.
That's right.
Right. And oh, by the way, guess what? When you can create anything, then it's kind of like when you have too much money. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's a positive problem. No doubt. It's positive. Better to have too much money than too little. Mm-hmm. However, it's still a problem because it doesn't buy you more meaning. Mm-hmm. And so if you spend all your time now focusing on people's negative nature because people are always wanting something from you because you have made it, then you start to lose meaning. You feel lonelier than ever. So even though you have all this money, you can't buy friends, you can't buy meaning, you can't, your kids don't know you, like all these problems that rich people have, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's the same thing. If you can create something in 3 hours that didn't exist and used to cost you $1 million, and now you can do it for $20 and on your laptop and then do it in 3 hours.
Well, that's great. And then you get the overwhelm of, I can create something new every day, but am I executing any of those things at scale? I'm inventing stuff now at a rapid pace, but am I actually operating any of them? Is there any of them that I'm really passionate about? And so then you get the overwhelm of that, right? And so all of it just levels back to, we need meaning.
Period.
And we're going to always be starved for that. And we will be happy and grateful when we have it. And now we live in a world where more is inevitable, but less of the more that matters is what we actually crave. And I think that's where your work and your mindset stuff is helping me define that, right? It's like, what is it that I actually want? What is it that I actually get meaning from? Because now essentially I can find a business model and a way to get there, even if I'm non-technical. Like, but have I defined what that is, or am I on somebody's treadmill being force-fed their version of it?
Right. Yeah, it all comes down to right now that your true authentic self. This is the great repurpose, as my friend Kyle Shannon says, the great reckoning that we are facing is, what do you care about? And I've always had this thing where I firmly believe when people say, oh, I'm trying to figure out my purpose. For me, it isn't that. I actually have a very strong belief that we all came in here with the same identical purpose. What's different that we can focus on, spend time, and cultivate is our path towards that purpose. And our purpose is each other, period. It's each other. In whatever form you are to be purposeful towards the humans you are near, your whole thing is like, you know, when you're on your deathbed, you're going to think about the humans I did good things for and the humans who loved me. You're not going to think about all the other bullshit. And so your job is each other. That's all of our purpose, is to look out for one another, to do what we can for one another. Now, how we get there is where we get to all choose our path. You know, what do we want to do to get there? But without that back to humans, it won't work. We know this. You cannot survive in an underground bunker alone for the rest of your life. You can, but you will go crazy, and you will probably, you know, end it for yourself, because that's not the intention of humanity. The intention of humanity is our community. And I also have this other thing that I say, especially about AI right now. If you are one of the still 7% who uses AI, still 7% of people in the US who use AI, the rest, about 20% has kind of heard of it and has touched it. And all the rest, no thank you. So if we are those people who understand AI, and we also understand, as we are, how to balance that fire hose, we also have to build rafts right now. And what I mean by that is, you have to recognize that what is coming for humanity is terrifying for most of humanity. They are truly, when they tell you they're afraid, it's real. And so if you have an ounce of optimism, an ounce of understanding, if you can build a raft right now that when you start to see that terror right before you, you're going to grab hold of those people, you're going to pull them up on the raft, and you're going to say, you're safe right now. Just sit here. And then you're going to generously help and support and lead, because that is the future. Is when we think about what will we be doing? Well, some of us are going to be raft guides, where we're holding people's hands. And, you know, and that comes back to like surviving and income and how will we all be? Well, I'll tell you what, right now you can make gobs of money. Absolutely. With AI, go do it. And then when you get it, sit in the place of, I'm going to be better served if I now go back and figure out how to use this money to help more people, because that's the reality we're facing. And you know what? If everybody around us is in a shit state and they've all just fallen apart because they don't know what their purpose is, they don't know their path, they don't know their plan, they don't have income, we're not helping. How's your world?
Right. Yeah. You're validating a lot of the things that I've arrived at in the last month, specifically
not in an easy path, but like in this search for what's the through line, where can I put my energy, where can I be useful, and everything you just said. I didn't start there. I wanted to end there, but I didn't start there. And then kind of in the last 72 hours, it's become clear to me, like not just the theory that you just said, but a way to do it. And in one little way, one little node, just doing it, but whatever. And that actually creates the thing that everybody really wants, which is like innate passion that is not, it's because you can see a place to be useful and you can see a place to add not more to the problem, but add to the opportunity side. And you can see a place where there's so much to go around that this notion of scarcity and fear around it can be mitigated.
Yes.
And then that makes you feel good about your own selfish needs and wants, which is you have grandkids or kids or people that you care about that you want to live into the future with and not have to worry about them.
Yeah.
So, you know, it actually is, it is important that we build the rafts and that we tell people, hey, guess what? If all you know how to do is blow up a raft, you have a purpose, you have a useful, and here's how you connect to the bigger thing. And if you know how to invent a raft or the next version of it, great, you go sit over here and you go do that. And if you know how to recruit people to the raft, you go over there and you do that thing, extrovert, right? And if you know how to educate people on how to sit safely in the raft, then you go do that. And like there's a role for all of you.
Yes.
And if all you want to do is just sit in a raft and be fed, fine, then go over there, sit and be fed, right? Like, that's what you can do.
Yep. It's real. I mean, that's where we're at. And I think, you know, the future and everything related to, I think, legacy, prosperity, anything you're thinking about that you're nervous about your own, the answer right now is look around and gather other humans for the, not like we did before either. I think we gathered people before as, you know, strictly friendships around hobbies or activities or, you know, our kids. I think it's a new gathering now, though. It's a gathering of, you know, we may not be in the same walks of life, but we have a mindset that if we're near each other, we're going to push each other or promote each other or whatever the thing is. So I think it's a new gathering of new humans that we haven't put ourselves always around. And it takes work and it takes time.
It's interesting because you mentioned the word authentic earlier on. And, you know, that's one of those words that like it actually, we all know it when we see it. And then it's also become a buzzword that, you know, again, just makes it all go ick, right? Because everyone's, oh, I'm going to be authentic. I need an authentic brand. I need this and that. But back to that thing, when you have an authentic need to gather because you can realize the existential threat that exists by not doing so, then all the pretense of I'm a good person, I'm a bad person, I'm a socially justice person, I'm a this person, I'm a giver, I'm a like all that pretense that we do to look good falls away because we can baseline out of say this is an existential threat and a once in a lifetime opportunity. We're gathering not because we're trying to do a thing to look a certain way. We're gathering because it's fundamental to our existence in the future.
Right.
And I think when you normalize things that way, even though they are based in survival, they have a different level of authenticity that works and delivers a different kind of value.
Well, and you just described the actual definition of authenticity. So I think people use that, yes, as a buzzword without recognizing it's not an ethereal thought. Authenticity truly means showing up as oneself. So you can throw around, we're authentic, but if you're not showing up as the true core, real, revealed, then you're not authentic. You're just doing something else. But I think the authenticity people are looking for right now is, I want to know and trust that you're showing me who you are and you're not bullshitting me. You're not selling something to me. You're not trying to get, but instead we're going to have more of a gift economy where we have a mutual exchange by our gathering together. And that is necessary. You know, that's like the old salons, the old guilds, the old, you know, when people used to come together around practice that were similar. Well, we're there again. I mean, but some of our practice is like business, money making, but we should still be around people in our guilds who want to, you know, advance whatever it is we want or need, which we haven't been doing enough. We've been just all taught to like run in these silos, be the solo entrepreneur, like be the founder, be the, you know, and it's like, it's not going to keep working. It's collapsing.
Right. Yeah. The identity crisis has to play out before we can unapologetically own our actual identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's time.
And the people that have already arrived there are the ones that we'll gravitate towards. The ones we'll listen to on podcasts for 2.5 hours. They're the ones we'll vote for in future elections, even if it isn't what the party wants.
Yeah.
And so like we'll get there because they've already surrendered themselves to their actual identity, and they recognize now that actually is something that people want to give their attention to. Yep. And the identity crisis will happen for those people that were sold a bag of goods that isn't sustainable. And then the empathy comes from realizing we all fall into those traps. And so like when they show back up and they've taken that mask off, whatever that mask is, let's welcome them as a fresh new opportunity. Right.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And I mean, that is the beautiful human generosity that in order for us, because it is all walks who have veered off course of what is good for themselves. And yeah, we're seeing it. We're seeing this reawakening. We're seeing this reckoning. We're seeing all of these things. It feels terrible and torn apart right now. But if we just generously stand back and go, well, but let's let this ride out, because these people need this. They need to walk through this. And there are certain times, like right now, you see a lot of people who see like we can see, who are kind of standing back. We're not in the front of anything. And that's because what we're witnessing is necessary. It sucks. It sucks. But we need new models. We've had all these models we've been working with for so many of the things in our culture, in our society, are well over 100 years old. It's just not working anymore. And what we need is the rise of, we need people to fund people who have vision that changes things around humanity and isn't just the next, like, you know, product or service or whatever. It's the containers. And I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation that people may remember. If they haven't, I encourage them to listen to the interview I did with Matt Ross on natural capital and some other things that we covered. But, you know, the interesting thing is that economics always follows supply and demand. And the piece that this is actually really interesting about is one thing to say people need to fund or people should fund. And the reality is those things never happen. What happens is scarcity and arbitrage, right, attract capital.
Friction.
And so when scarcity and arbitrage exist, then you have opportunity to put capital to work and have it multiply. Well, we just created scarcity for humanity because we will be the scarce asset now. 8 billion of us will be dwarfed by 800 billion agentic AIs. And that's not going to take 10 years to get there.
No.
Right? We already have more mobile phones than humans, and that took us less than a decade. So, you know, what do you think is going to happen when you have a company with 2 people and 38 or 40 agentic AIs running work streams? Well, then you just multiply that out times 8 billion and you get there, right? So the point is that we're now the scarce experiential human beings. We're the empathy engines. We're the ones who crave each other, like you said, at a DNA level, no matter how introverted we are. And we need significance. We need meaning. We need love and acceptance. We have to have those needs. They don't go away. And then when we get those 4, then we can look at growth and contribution, in which case now you get an amplifier effect. And so I think that inherently takes care of the allocation problem.
Yeah.
Because people will realize humans are the moat.
And when humans are the moat, then what does the human need, crave, and want? And what are they sick of? And those are the things that will then attract the capital because they'll make more money.
That's
And
right.
we won't have to do it because it's green or socially good or socially acceptable or a political statement or an identity. We'll do it because of the same reason we always do it.
Yep. Yeah,
Right.
but it'll be different.
Yeah, the outcome will be different.
It sure will. Yeah, and listen, we roller coaster as humans like this, but I just really want to encourage as much as possible when the fear strikes, the answer is don't sit it out alone. Just immediately. And if you're worried about, your income or anything financial, get with other people who are worried just like you and get solutions around it. Make agreements that are like, we're not going to get together and vent and have a bitch fest. We're going to get together and solution build because I'm scared shitless. You're scared shitless. Let's get in here together. That is the answer right now. And the people who are going to really thrive in this immediate future are those people exactly who look around and go, this is collapsing on a lot of fronts. Let's not try to do any of this stuff again. Let's spend some time on what's coming. We don't need more apps. We don't need more models. We don't need more socials. We don't need any of that stuff. What we need is for people to look back and really start to think about the humans, their data, and how can we really benefit one another to create these economies where people can grow and thrive and learn and earn together. That's where
and we touched on scale as the way you think. And I think we now live in a reality where we can literally solve a micro problem for ourselves, whatever that problem may be.
Yep.
Or for a collective of small friends like us. We can gather in small communities of common interest is what I call them. And we can go, we need to solve this problem for all of us. How do we do that? And then what we're going to do is we're going to figure out somebody is going to code something.
Yeah.
We're going to solve our problem, whatever that is, a money problem, a thing problem, a data problem. We're going to solve that problem. But then infinitely it's going to scale because we live in an open source world. And so now if we can focus on solving our problem, we can solve our problem and for the people that we care about, the dozen, the 2 dozen, whatever. But that either then puts that idea out there for someone else to see who then scales it. And we don't care because maybe we're not motivated by size and scope and that. Or it's going to make our thing way bigger than us, in which case everybody benefits and we benefit too. But the point is that we don't have to decide that. We can literally just kind of almost be enlightened and selfish at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a friend, Liz Miller-Gershfeld, who each week she says, okay, recheck. What do you want more of? And that is not selfish. That is, what do you want more of in your life? And how are you going to do it? How are you going to achieve it? What is your personal more? And I'll tell you, in that exercise, which that's in a community around AI adventurers, what has led so many of us to really reckon with of what do I want more of? It's not on this box. It's out there. And so it's causing, I want to go back to where I was. My abilities are bigger, but what I want to go back to is more time with direct human contact. And I wouldn't have figured that out unless I really went through this process over the last few months of going, what do I want more of? And what do I miss? What am I lacking? What needs to be? For me, it's creative engagements, experiential time with humans.
Right.
And in my
more of the less, it's going to be more of the less that matters to me or you or to them, right? It's more of the less that matters and less of everything else.
Yeah.
And and this is again where humans can win because they'll become a different level of influence. People will attract and go deep on a 2-hour conversation with Cyndi Coon instead of watching Netflix and flipping through 50 options and never picking one for 30 minutes because you're overwhelmed with choice and none of it looks good, right? Like the simplification of it. So where's the best place? We'll put it in the show notes. Where's the best place to connect with you or learn about the projects you're working on? How do you want to engage with folks?
Yeah, stalk me on my link tree. So I'll drop that for you because that will take you to everything. All my websites, all my books, all my projects, everything I'm working on. I keep Linktree as the freshest so that I don't have to go do things on websites. And you can find on the Linktree, as an example, threatcasting.ai, where you can go and find all our past reports and sci-fi prototypes. So start there and you can stalk me widely from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the Atomic Level. I look forward to more conversations on and offline with you, and it's great to have you.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This is fun.